Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so pleased to have on the air with us Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the Executive Director of Southern California Hospice Foundation. How you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for joining us. And with me in her third month now as a co-host of the Spotlight Show is Kristen Fogel. She is the Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc., and they will be celebrating their 20th anniversary in 2024. Kristen, thanks for joining as always.
Thanks so much for having me.
Very, very good. So let's just start right at it. What is the mission of your foundation?
The mission of Southern California Hospice Foundation is to deliver a breadth of resources for caregivers, patients who are terminal, and provide them with dignity, comfort, and support during their final journey.
Exactly. So do you raise money for hospices, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we're not actually a hospice provider. We are an organization that was established to help fill the gap of needs that reach beyond the scope of what the hospice benefit covers. So hospice is a Medicare benefit. If you're 65 years and older, and you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and you wish to no longer seek aggressive treatment, hospice provides comfort measures enabling that person to have in-home hospice care where they receive visits from a physician, a nurse for pain management, a social worker to help with final arrangements, a home health aide to help with bathing. And so you have this whole interdisciplinary team that comes and surrounds that patient and does really intermittent visits. However, there are a lot of needs that exist outside of the scope of what hospice covers. And these are needs such as food, transportation, final wishes, payment of utility bill, and now with the opening of our end-of-life care home, housing and 24-hour caregiving. So we basically help to meet needs of whatever is lacking for hospice patients.
Talk to us a little bit about what Heavenly Home is.
That's a great question. Heavenly Home, we're so excited about it. We have been working on this project for a long time because, as I mentioned, housing and caregiving is not covered by hospice. And so we receive a lot of phone calls from hospitals, hospices, families where they cannot provide the 24-hour caregiving and they need a place to go. So we launched a capital campaign back in 2017. We raised the money to open the Heavenly Home, which just opened in February of this year. And so it's a 6-bed residential care facility that's designed to care for hospice residents only. So we have a hospice waiver for all 6 rooms, and we care for patients in their final stages of life. And we partner with the hospice team. So the hospice team manages their pain, and we follow their plan of care. And then our 24-hour caregivers provide all the medications, the bathing, any type of needs that they might have, the food, the housing, that kind of thing. And so we're really excited to be able to help meet the needs in that way.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I actually have a friend who's going into hospice, and so I'm a little bit aware of everything that's kind of going into that. Where's the facility located?
The facility is located in Mission Viejo.
Okay.
And right now, we actually have, we were at full capacity for about 6 months, but we recently had 2 residents pass away, so we have 2 openings.
Okay.
Yeah,
Drew, you sounded like you needed to say something.
Well, my mom was passed away at 95 years young a few years ago, and she was at hospice, actually at the facility where she was staying. It's a great place in Palm Desert, and just the care that you folks do in the hospice world is just, I mean, if everybody in this world treated people like you guys do, we'd have a better world, would we not?
Thank you.
Without question.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to talk a little bit about your background. So I'm reading this on the questionnaire. So you had 2 strokes before the age of 30. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
And that is really what led me to the field of hospice. I'm a 2-time stroke survivor, and I had my first stroke at the age of 11 due to a lesion in my brain that I was born with. And when I was 14, the doctors told me that I wouldn't live past the age of 30. So I grew up all of my life very sick, and also knowing I had a limited life expectancy. And so that really kind of drew me to help people who were in need. And my first job out of college, I was a hospice volunteer coordinator. I would recruit, train, retain hospice volunteers. And I loved hospice, fell in love with it. It led to helping make wishes come true, which led to fundraising. And then when I was 25, I had my second massive stroke. I was in a coma for 8 days. I wasn't expected to ever wake up. Donate Life was called to harvest my organs. My best friend wrote my eulogy. And when I woke up, I was discharged to the hospital or from the hospital and put on home health. And they removed the inoperable brain lesion. So now I have a normal life expectancy, although I am still physically disabled. My right side doesn't work. But I had this epiphany when I was in my hospital bed in my living room, and my head was shaved and I couldn't count past 10. I barely knew my own name. I couldn't understand words very well because I had such bad aphasia from the stroke. And I remember, just kind of looking out the window and seeing dog walkers and trees and grass and life and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so sick. It's so upsetting. I'm so depressed. And then I would have someone come and hold my hand or pray with me. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what my hospice patients must feel like. Weak, wounded, vulnerable, bedbound, but then to have someone just come and be present. And we cannot underestimate the power of presence when someone is sick, because oftentimes they can't really understand. They don't have the ability to speak, but they have the ability to feel someone's presence. And at that moment, I knew why God had saved me. And I vowed to return to work full time, which I did 7 months later. And I've been at SoCal Hospice Foundation since 2010. And I love it. I'm so passionate about it. It's my ministry, my reason for being. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that get confused about hospice, all right? And they think, here it is, I've got 1 day to live, and then I'm going to put me in hospice. Not necessarily. You can be in hospice for a while. And I know for a fact you can sometimes, not always, not a high percentage, but you can recover from hospice on this. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So hospice is really for anybody who has 6 months or less to live. When people think of hospice, like you said, they think, oh my gosh, I have a day left to live.
Right.
But hospice is life affirming. And in fact, studies show that people who go onto hospice actually live longer than people who don't and continue to seek that aggressive treatment, because you're getting all of these visitors, you're in your home, you're getting like doted on basically, and you really feel cared about. And so sometimes patients graduate from hospice and we have to discharge them for extended prognosis because they no longer meet the criteria to be on hospice. That's more common with patients that have dementia and Alzheimer's, maybe COPD, congestive heart failure. But with the cancer patients, it's usually, more progressive. So we don't see that as often. But patients do, in fact, live longer because they have quality of life for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I want to chat about that. We're chatting with Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the executive director of Southern California Hospice Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 17th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union in this beautiful Mission Fed studio in Scripps Ranch. And Mission Fed for more than 6 decades has been doing great things for San Diego. Folks, joined by my wonderful co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. They'll be celebrating their 20th anniversary in 2024. I'm so glad you mentioned that about hospice. I've had many arguments with folks who don't know what they're talking about and think that, no, when you're in, you never get out, and you don't live. And I said, that's not true. I mean, certainly the overwhelming majority, that is the case in that aspect. We know that. But what you described is absolutely so spot on, is that you're getting care. People are talking to you. It's the exact opposite if you think you're shut away in some closet and no one's doing it. And that human interaction, as you just said, is so critical. And it's a reason why people, actually, live a little bit longer life in the aspect of it. So how much when you counsel, you're counseling the person who's going to be in hospice, but how much do you counsel their family members?
Families are a huge part of the hospice journey. Not only are typically the families the caregivers, but they also are educated on the signs and symptoms of approaching death. They're educated on what to expect as their loved one declines, and how to really offer that support to that dying person. So absolutely, the families are involved, and we follow the families for a year after the patient's death, offering bereavement counseling.
Yeah. Now, Kristen, your friend's going into hospice or is in hospice?
No, he's going into hospice. And that was actually one of the things that I was thinking about is something that I don't always think about is, how one pays for this, right? Hospice care has got to be expensive. And so, he, like other people I've seen, are doing a GoFundMe with friends and family. So Heavenly House is for people who can't necessarily afford it financially too, right? That's one of the missions?
Yeah. So that is one of our missions, to take lower income residents. Hospice is a Medicare benefit. So if you are 65 and older, hospice is paid for 100%.
Okay.
So our foundation is, we come in and we help with needs that aren't met by hospice.
Okay.
So in addition to the hospice team coming in, that's covered by Medicare and private insurances, but they also cover all the medication, all of the durable medical equipment, any kind of, if the patient needs any kind of physical therapy, which is rare, but they'll cover that in certain instances. But what's not covered is the housing and the caregiving. So your friend is probably raising money to help with that.
Yes.
And that's the hard part, because if you hire an in-home 24-hour caregiver, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it would cost you up to $30,000 a month.
Whew.
So it's very unaffordable for most people if they don't have the family to come and help with the caregiving. So the alternative is placement either in a skilled nursing facility or an assisted living facility. Ours is a boarding care specifically designed for hospice patients that need housing and 24-hour caregiving.
When we come back from break, Michelle, want to continue this conversation and what advice you have for people whose family members are going to be going into hospice, just like Kristen's friend and so forth, what to expect, okay? And maybe you can help out. These are the questions you should be asking, okay? Because this is so foreign to folks on this. You know about that. And we need to talk about the Dolled Up event with your friend Jean, who turned 104 years young. And we'll talk about that too. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, we're going to be right back with Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the executive director of Southern California Hospice Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 17th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, continuing to do spectacular things for San Diego. Folks for more than 6 decades, joined by my great co-host, Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are back with Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest running community podcast. We're now in our 17th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union and these wonderful Mission Fed studio in Scripps Ranch. Mission Fed just always elevating the bar for San Diegans for more than 6 decades. Chatting with Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the executive director of Southern California Hospice Foundation, and joined by co-host Kristen Fogel, the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. They'll be celebrating their 20th anniversary in 2024. Before Kristen grills you on the dolled up event, Michelle, wanted to get back to something that we talked about right before break, is that what advice would you give to people that actually are themselves going into hospice or their families? What questions should they be asking?
Well, I think that a lot of people don't realize that they have a choice when it comes to choosing a hospice provider, that they don't necessarily need to go with the hospice that their physician referred them to. They could go to any hospice. And so if they have the time or the wherewithal to actually interview hospices, that might be a good idea too. And so there is a choice basically for them to find out if they want to actually go with that hospice. And once they sign on to that hospice, if they're not happy with the services they're receiving, they can always revoke and sign on to a different hospice. And so it's not permanent. You're not signing a contract. You're not saying you can't seek aggressive treatment anymore. You're basically just signing consents that allow that hospice team to go into that home or that facility where that patient's located and administer the hospice care. The other thing that I would recommend is just to ask a lot of questions and find out, how often is the nurse planning to visit? How often will the home health aide come? I need spiritual care. Can you connect me with a chaplain? I need help with final arrangements. And so they'll help with all of that as well. So just, and also another good question to ask is, does your hospice provide continuous care? So there are different levels of care depending upon the patient's signs and symptoms. And standard is routine level of care, which is where a nurse visits 1 to 3 times a week just to make sure that the medication is correct. Then there's general inpatient care. So when the patient starts having symptoms out of control, they can transfer to a facility for a period of up to 3 weeks to manage their symptoms. And then there's respite. And so if a family needs a break and they're experiencing caregiver burnout, hospice will actually pay for that patient to go to a facility for 5 days, and that will be covered 100% by hospice. And then there's continuous care, where if the patient starts to actively die or experience pain out of control, that hospice should be able to send a nurse on continuous care in 8-hour increments up to 24 hours a day until the signs and symptoms are managed. So at the Heavenly Home, because we're non-skilled, we're only caregivers, our limitations are we can't administer injections, we can't do suppositories, and we can't administer medications to a like comatose patient, a non-alert patient. And so in that case, the continuous nurse comes and they'll administer those medications, or the family will come and do that. And so it's always good to find out what that scope of how often they're going to be visiting, and then ask what is the plan of care, and so that family or that patient is a part of that plan of care, and to make sure that everyone's on the same page and on board with it.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal advice. Is that what you guys offer? So if somebody doesn't have an expert like you, do they contact your foundation? Do you have on your website, here are the things you should do, just the way you outlined it right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can call at any time. Our phone number is 877-661-0087. You can also go to our website, SoCalHospiceFoundation.org. And we do a lot of counseling to families who are looking for hospice. We also do a lot of hospice referrals to different hospices in the community. So if they're located in Southern California, we have great partnerships with all of the hospices in Southern California, and we can send a referral and I can walk them through the process, especially like when they start to sign on to hospice. So the first thing that's going to happen is they would say, I want a hospice referral. So I call one of my hospice partners, and then we send out a nurse to do what's called an explanation of benefits. And that's when the nurse meets with the family, meets with the patient, does an assessment, and looks at, okay, well, do they meet the hospice criteria for their diagnosis? And then this is what they can expect. And then if they want to go with that hospice, then they sign the consents. And again, they're only consents. That's not a contract. It's nothing. And you can easily come off hospice if you want to go back to seeking aggressive treatment. It's not a binding thing. And I think people should know that it's not necessarily a death sentence.
No, that's great. That is great advice. We're chatting with Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the executive director of Southern California Hospice Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, joined by my co-host Kristen Fogel of San Diego Writers Inc. Kristen.
Yeah, can you talk to us about your Dolled Up event?
Yeah, so we just had an event. Basically a fundraiser for our foundation called Dolled Up. It was a women-led event for women, and we had a very special patient with us who is a resident at the Heavenly Home. Her name is Jean, and tomorrow she turns 104. So we had an early birthday celebration for her and a cake, and we got her all dolled up. Bought her all new clothes, fur coat, everything. And when we delivered the clothes to her, she cried tears of joy because she said, I've always shopped at a secondhand store and I can't remember the last time I had new clothes. Wow. And so we're having a big birthday party for her tomorrow at the Heavenly Home. And that's a part of what our foundation does is we're life affirming and we do everything we can to celebrate patients, to make wishes come true. If they want to go to the beach, we'll take them to the beach. If they want to be reunited with family, we'll help to make that happen and facilitate that. So we just want to help make each moment count for our patients and their families.
Beautiful.
No, it's phenomenal. And listen, Kristen obviously will be following this with her friend. Certainly I did with Mom and all that business. And what you provide, the feedback and just getting people calmed down. And this is how it works. And everything will be fine, especially when you get toward the end of life. It's just so critical. People's nerves are rattled anyway. When you get to that, you guys are experts in this. I'm preaching to the congregation without question. Michelle, what can our listeners do to help support your efforts?
Well, they can always volunteer their time. They can give their talent, or they can give their treasure. So we always want people to be involved with us through time, talent, and treasure. We are having, during the month of November, we have a fundraiser called Light Up a Life. It is where we ask people to make a donation in any amount. And you can make a donation on our website. You can mail us in a check. And we will attach a tag to our Christmas tree in the Heavenly Home and write your loved one's name on the tag. And it's a way to honor the memory of your loved one, or honor them if they're still alive. And so that is one way to help financially. And then, of course, volunteers are always needed to visit our patients to provide emotional support and companionship.
I'd love to invite you to make a return appearance, and as long as it's not breaking any HIPAA laws, and we've done this in the past with groups, the American Cancer Society or Huntington's disease, and they gotten permission from either the family of somebody who had benefited from the organization. If you have a family that benefited from what you did, okay, in their loved one was taken such great care, and my goodness, what a great end of life. We'd love to have you hopefully come into the studio one of these days. We're just down the street from you, and bring in a family if you think that's appropriate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because we're a nonprofit, we ask all of our patients that we work with to sign a publicity consent so that we can share their stories. Okay. So absolutely, that would be wonderful.
Well, let's plan on doing that, and hopefully you can make the trek down from Orange County if given enough time.
Of course.
And that would be wonderful. Michelle, what an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for the great work you do, and wishing you nothing but great success moving forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You've been chatting with Michelle Wulfestieg. She is the Executive Director of the Southern California Hospice Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg, as you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 17th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, just elevating everybody in San Diego now for 6 decades. And Kristen Fogel, another fine job as co-host. I can't thank you so much for joining me. These now into your 3rd month.
Can't wait to do it again.
We'll look forward to it. Michelle, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Give a high five to Judy for us as well. And we'll look forward to having you back on sooner than later.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.